No more terrible disaster could befall your people than for them to fall into the hands of a hero. As the hype train for Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 1 accelerates, we're beginning to see more articles and reviews coming out for the film. I mostly take such reviews with a grain of salt, as I believe that many of these media websites and companies covering the entertainment industry are simply trying to get their articles noticed and write the headlines in a way that is intended to drive clicks. Upon reading or listening to the various reviews, it doesn't take long to tell if someone is unfamiliar with the source material upon which Villeneuve's film is based. All too often, I find myself disagreeing with the critics' consensus of new media, and as the reviews for Dune continue to pour in, I'm reminded of why this is the case. The presumptive accusation I'm beginning to see crop up more frequently is that Frank Herbert's novel Dune positions Paul Atreides as a chosen one, leading to the claim that he serves as some sort of white savior. While others in the Dune fandom have covered this issue, given its recent resurgence and probable continued propagation in the media, I'd like to offer my opinion in regards to this concept. One interview, which actually served as the catalyst for my creation of this video, was in an article on Slashfilm with the headline, Dune director Denis Villeneuve says his interpretation critiques the white savior narrative. I'll leave a link to the article in the description below. One point I'd like to hone in on is the portion where the article mentions the complaint that Dune contains the literary trope of white saviorism. Villeneuve responded to these concerns in a roundtable interview attended by Slashfilm writer Vanessa Armstrong, saying, quote, "It's a very important question. It is why I thought that Dune is, when I'm reading it, relevant. It's a critique of that. It's not a celebration of a savior. It's a critique. It's a combination of that criticism, of that idea of a savior, of someone that will come and tell another population how to be and what to believe and try to tell them how. So it's not a condemnation, but a criticism. That's the way I feel it's relevant, and that can seem contemporary. That's what I will say about that. Yeah, frankly, it's the opposite." In my opinion, Villeneuve's response to this concern is balanced and fair. He essentially rejects the premise of the white savior trope in the nicest way possible by stating that he believes that the book serves as a warning and a critique of the idea of saviors. This falls right in line with Frank Herbert's own comments about the role of Paul Atreides and how he crafted the character to serve as a warning against blindly trusting leaders.
What is the message? What is the statement that you're attempting to make here?
Don't trust leaders to always be right. I worked to create a leader in this book who would be really an attractive, charismatic person for all the good reasons, not for any bad reasons. Then power comes to him. He makes decisions. Some of his decisions made for millions of people, millions upon millions of people, don't work out too well. I think that our society was formed on a distrust for government, and we seem to have lost that distrust of government. I kid around and I say that my favorite president in recent years has been Richard Nixon, because he taught us to distrust government. What is it, that government is a shared illusion, and when the myth dies, the government disappears? That's right.
My biggest issue with the Slashfilm article is actually in what follows Villeneuve's comments, where the writer says, quote, "To his credit, Denis Villeneuve appears to have put much thought into this, to the extent that the question didn't seem to catch him by surprise. He acknowledges the seriousness of the potentially thorny issue while emphatically denying that his adaptation will fall into the same tropes that the source material succumbed to at times. Honestly, it's refreshing to hear an established filmmaker speak out about how depiction doesn't necessarily equal endorsement, which is a common problem that seems to plague social media and audiences in general. It's entirely possible that Dune may present Atreides and his family as white saviors without genuinely taking the moral position that it's good, actually." To me, and no doubt many others, this comment demonstrates a fundamental failure to understand what Villeneuve is saying, as well as to understand the spirit and narrative inherent in Frank Herbert's saga. This is one in what is proving to be a long line of short-sighted, terrible takes intended to cause controversy and push an agenda without having any substance to support it. Many who are familiar with Dune are well aware of the fact that Paul's actions in the first novel go on to have tremendous and terrible consequences across the known universe, resulting in the loss of billions of lives. And while the Fremen did come to believe in Paul as their Messiah, it is never painted in a purely positive light. It's really a story about the Atreides' fight for survival, and Paul and Jessica's use of the religious myths and institutions that were in place to escape death. Something I enjoy about Frank Herbert's series are the many details which flesh out so much of this vast universe. Interestingly, however, the details involving the ethnicity or skin color of the characters are hardly ever mentioned, nor do they ever have a role in the outworking of the story. In the book, Paul's father, Duke Leto, is described with black hair and olive skin, a depiction which could serve to fit a variety of ethnicities. And Paul himself is only described as small with his mother's oval face, green eyes, and dark hair. Needless to say, there is no evidence to support the idea that Frank Herbert created Paul as a representative of white power. As such, any claim to the contrary comes off as disrespectful to the author, and I reject it outright. Although the Atreides are arriving to take stewardship of Arrakis and gain a measure of authority over the planet, they are hardly looking to subjugate or oppress the local Fremen people. Duke Leto sees the Fremen as a potentially powerful ally, referring to them as desert power, hoping that they can help to protect his family from whatever scheme the Imperial House, along with their rival House Harkonnen, may be plotting. As with most of the elements found in Frank Herbert's saga, these characters are nuanced. There are layers to this story, and the attempt by critics to reduce it down to a few ideological tropes in order to stir controversy is insulting to many Dune fans such as myself. What I really appreciate about Villeneuve's remarks and all of the other interviews that I've seen from him regarding Dune is that he always speaks in a way that shows a reverence for the source material, as is the case with his comments in this article. Overall, it's clear to me that the writer is trying to attribute some condemnation of the book's supposed white savior syndrome to Villeneuve. However, his statement to me only indicates a rejection of the premise, stating that the opposite is true. Ironically, I think that by trying to point out the supposed white savior trope in Herbert's book, these critics are tending to fall into an even more common trope of modern journalism, in attempting to tear apart what came before in order to prop up what is current and new. This is yet another reason why I'm so happy to talk about Frank Herbert's books and to cover the lore of his amazing series. I believe that the more people that are familiar with the themes and elements of the Dune saga, the less likely it will be that they will be deceived by such incendiary and misleading reviews and articles. But I'm curious to know what you think about the idea that Dune promotes Paul as a white savior. Do you think there is any substance to this claim, or do you disagree with the idea as I do? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more Dune and other sci-fi and fantasy news and lore. Thank you all so much for your support, and as always, have a very nerdy day.